In the gleaming heart of Manhattan, on the 50th floor of a skyscraper that pierced the clouds, Marcus Thompson, a 40-year-old white American with sharp blue eyes and a tailored suit, stood by a floor-to-ceiling window. His once youthful face, now etched with lines of stress, tightened as he rehearsed a biting speech meant to dismantle the reputation of his ex, Amara Johnson. 15 years ago, at 25, he had abandoned her, a 23-year-old Black American woman, dismissing her as a liability to his tech empire ambitions. Tonight at the Tech Future Gala, he planned to confront her to remind her of her supposed insignificance. But as he glanced across the city's glittering skyline, a sleek black helicopter sliced through the dusk, landing on a nearby rooftop. Amara, 38, her dark skin radiant under the heliport's lights, stepped out with unshakable confidence. Three identical teenage boys, each with their rich brown complexion and sharp features echoing Marcus's, followed her, their movements synchronized. Before boarding, Amara checked a diamond-encrusted Rolex on her wrist, a timepiece worth more than Marcus's vintage Porsche. Marcus's prepared words dissolved his breath, catching as he realized the woman he'd scorned now commanded an aerospace empire, and the triplets he'd rejected were prodigies shaping humanity's future. The revelation hit like a shockwave, rewinding Marcus's mind to 2010, to a rainy Boston night when his life diverged from Amara's. Back then, Amara Johnson, 23, a brilliant aerospace engineering student on a full Harvard scholarship, stood in her modest Roxbury apartment, its walls papered with second-hand dreams and meticulous schedules. The bathroom, small but spotless, was her sanctuary, where she now clutched a plastic pregnancy test. Two pink lines stared back unyielding, confirming her deepest fear: pregnant. At 23, with 2 semesters left until graduation, her world tilted. Her heart pounded as she splashed cold water on her face, her dark skin flushed with anxiety. The mirror reflected a young woman whose ambition had carried her from Chicago's South Side to Harvard's hallowed halls, but now uncertainty loomed. She was carrying triplets, a truth confirmed days later by an ultrasound at a discreet clinic far from campus. Amara's thoughts churned as she imagined telling Marcus, her boyfriend of 2 years. At 25, Marcus Thompson, with his pale skin and privileged confidence, was the heir to Thompson Technologies, a rising software firm. They'd met during her internship at his company, where her innovative designs caught his eye, sparking a romance that felt like destiny. They'd spoken of a future marriage, children, but always in vague, distant terms after she'd built her career, and he'd expanded his empire to Silicon Valley. Now, at 23, her flat stomach hid a reality that threatened those dreams. As a Black woman navigating Harvard's predominantly white spaces, Amara had already faced subtle slights. Classmates questioning her scholarship, professors raising eyebrows at her ambition. The weight of those biases now mingled with her fear of Marcus's reaction. Would he see their children as a burden, as others had labeled her potential? Amara sat at a thrift store desk in her apartment, her hands trembling as she calculated her finances. Her scholarship covered tuition, but her bank account held just $243. Her part-time research job barely paid rent, and her parents, public servants in Chicago, couldn't afford to help without sacrificing their stability. Tears pricked her eyes, not from despair, but from a flicker of defiance. She whispered to her unborn children, "We'll make it. I'll prove them all wrong." The Boston skyline, barely visible through her rain-streaked window, seemed to pulse with possibility, a silent promise of the empire she would one day build. Unbeknownst to her, this moment of vulnerability would forge a path to a future where she'd soar above that same skyline, her triplets by her side, leaving Marcus to grapple with the legacy he'd discarded. Amara Johnson stood in the dim glow of her Roxbury apartment, the scent of sizzling filet mignon and truffle mashed potatoes filling the air. She had spent her last $40 on ingredients for Marcus Thompson's favorite meal, her hands trembling not from the effort, but from the weight of the news she carried. The small dining table set with mismatched thrift store plates and a single candle gleamed with careful artistry. Marcus once said her simple blue cotton dress brought out the warmth in her eyes and clung to her still flat frame. She glanced at her phone, 7:15 p.m., and smoothed the fabric, her heart a drumbeat of hope and dread. Marcus's text buzzed through traffic's a mess. Be there in 20. Tonight, she would tell him about the triplets, the 3 tiny lives confirmed by an ultrasound just days ago. They dreamed of a future together, but would he embrace this unexpected present? At 7:32, the lock clicked, and Marcus entered his tailored suit pristine, despite the drizzle outside. His sharp features softened by their 2 years together, hardened as he surveyed the candlelit table. "What's this?" he asked, setting down his leather briefcase with a thud. "I made your favorite," Amara said, stepping forward to kiss him, her smile fragile. "I wanted tonight to be special." Marcus loosened his tie, frowning. "You know I prefer Sorolina on Thursdays. Today's been brutal investors crawling all over me." His eyes narrowed, taking in her dress and the faint trace of makeup she rarely wore. "What's the occasion?" Amara's rehearsed words faltered under his scrutiny. She gestured to the table where steam rose from the untouched meal. "I have something important to tell you." They sat, the candlelight flickering between them. Marcus poured himself a generous glass of Cabernet, his movements sharp, while Amara pushed asparagus around her plate. Appetite gone. "Just say it, Amara." "You're acting strange," he said, cutting into his steak with a scowl. She took a deep breath, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. "I'm pregnant with triplets." The silence was a chasm. Marcus's fork clattered against the plate, his expression morphing from shock to coldness, making Amara's skin prickle. "Pregnant," he repeated, his voice low and sharp. "Triplets. You're sure they're mine?" The question struck like a slap, her breath catching. "Of course they're yours," she whispered, hurt blooming in her chest. "How could you ask that?" Marcus stood pacing the small living area, his polished shoes clicking on the worn floor. "This is wild. Do you know what this means? I've got Silicon Valley breathing down my neck next week. A family with you." Amara rose, trembling, her voice small but firm. "With me?" His laugh was hollow and cruel. Asked, his face twisted with contempt as he turned. "Amara, be realistic. You're brilliant, sure, but you're a scholarship kid from Roxbury. My World Boardrooms galas, the Thompson legacy, requires someone like Claire Winthrop, not you, with 3 babies dragging me down." Each word sliced through her, targeting insecurities she'd shared in vulnerable moments. As a black woman at Harvard, she'd faced whispers questioning her place. Now Marcus echoed those doubts with surgical precision. Tears welled, but she refused to let them fall. "You don't mean that," she said. "You're just shocked. We can figure this out." "There's nothing to figure out," Marcus snapped, striding to the bedroom. He yanked designer shirts from the closet, packing with ruthless efficiency. This was never permanent. "You were fun, Amara, but marriage kids. Not with someone who clips coupons to survive." In less than an hour, he stripped the apartment of his presence, leaving only the echo of his disdain. Amara followed him outside, the fine rain soaking her dress, her pride crumbling. "Marcus, please," she begged, voice breaking. "These are your children. Our children." He paused on the wet sidewalk of Commonwealth Avenue, pulling the promise ring from his pocket, a silver band he'd given her on their first anniversary. Without a word, he tossed it into a puddle, where it sank with a soft splash. He said, "You're a burden to my future." his voice ice cold. A nobody who'll hold me back. Please don't contact me again. His luxury sedan roared away, taillights vanishing into the Boston night. Amara sank onto the apartment steps, sobs racking her body as rain mingled with tears. The ring glinted dully at her feet, a symbol of broken promises. Inside the apartment felt hollow, the uneaten dinner mocking her hope. Amara cleared the table mechanically, blowing out the candle, its smoke curling like her fading dreams. Sitting at her desk, she pulled out a notepad. Her vision blurred, but her resolve hardened. She calculated $243 in savings rent, due in 2 weeks prenatal vitamins, and soon 3 of everything diapers, cribs, futures. Her parents in Chicago proud of her. Harvard scholarship couldn't afford to help without jeopardizing their struggles. Alone, she wrote, plan at the top of a fresh page, her pen steady. He's wrong, she whispered to her unborn triplets. About me, about us. We'll show him. The rain pattered against her window, but within her a fire ignited, a determination to build a legacy that would eclipse Marcus's betrayal. Amara Johnson woke at 4:30 a.m. to the relentless patter of Boston rain, her alarm cutting through the fog of exhaustion. The Roxbury apartment, still bare from Marcus's departure, felt colder, but she forced herself upright, ignoring the nausea roiling her stomach. Her notepad marked plan lay on the desk, a blueprint for survival. 3 jobs, a perfect GPA, and a future for her unborn triplets. As a black woman at Harvard, she'd already navigated skeptical glances from classmates who assumed her scholarship was charity, not merit. Now, pregnant and abandoned, the weight of those biases pressed harder, whispering she'd fail. But Amara's resolve burned brighter than doubt. She whispered to her flat stomach, we're stronger than they think. By dawn, she'd updated her resume, her fingers flying across a cracked laptop screen. Within days, she secured 3 jobs to supplement her scholarship: morning receptionist at Boston Community Health Center, afternoon library assistant at Harvard, and late-night document transcription for a legal firm. Her schedule was brutal. 4:30 a.m. Wake-ups, bus rides to the clinic by 5:45, answering phones, and filing paperwork until 10 p.m. She scarfed down a peanut butter sandwich en route to her 11th orbital mechanics class, then worked the library stacks from 300 to 700 shelving books, while dodging curious stares from students. Nights ended past midnight, typing medical reports in her silent apartment, her eyes burning, but her mind sharp. Weekends offered no reprieve, extra transcription work, and meal prep squeezed between coursework. The physical toll was relentless. Morning sickness forced frequent bathroom breaks, and her feet ached from hours on the clinic's linoleum floors. At the Department of Transitional Assistance, clutching proof of her pregnancy, Amara faced a clerk's skepticism. Harvard. And you need food stamps, the woman asked, her tone sharp. Heat flooded Amara's cheeks, but she held her ground. My scholarship covers tuition, not triplets. I'm doing this alone. After grueling scrutiny, she secured provisional food assistance, a small victory that felt hollow against the clerk's judgmental gaze. As a black single mother-to-be, she sensed the world waiting for her to stumble, but she refused to give them the satisfaction. By her 6th month, her growing belly drew whispers from classmates and patients alike. In hushed tones, some offered kind congratulations. Others speculated about the pregnant scholarship girl. The exhaustion was bone deep, her ankles swelling painfully by midday. One Thursday, while shelving engineering texts, a wave of dizziness hit. She gripped a shelf, books tumbling as her vision blurred. Darkness swallowed her, and she awoke in a hospital bed, monitors beeping, a sterile smell stinging her nose. Panic surged her babies, her classes, her jobs. But a gentle voice interrupted. You're safe, Amara said. Dr. Olivia Harper, a renowned MIT professor who'd mentored countless women in STEM. Olivia, her warm eyes scanning Amara's chart, had found her notebook of propulsion equations in her backpack, its pages filled with innovative designs. Olivia said, "You're pushing yourself too hard," her tone firm but kind. 3 jobs, a 4.0 and triplets. It's a miracle you're still standing. Amara's throat tightened, tears threatening. "I don't have a choice," she whispered, her hand resting on her belly. "No one else will take care of us." Olivia's expression softened, revealing a flicker of her past struggles. "I was you once alone, underestimated, but talent like yours doesn't go unnoticed." She held up Amara's notebook, pointing to a sketch of an ion propulsion system. "This could change aerospace. There's an MIT NASA competition next month. Let me help you submit it." Amara shook her head, and monitors humbled around her. "I can't. I'm barely staying conscious." But Olivia's insistence was unshakable. "You've already done the hard part, the ideas. I'll handle formatting. You focus on healing." Amara felt a spark of hope for the first time since Marcus's betrayal, tempered by fear. Could she trust this lifeline, or would it crumble like her dreams? As Olivia sat beside her laptop open, Amara's resolve hardened. She'd fight for her babies and future, proving the world wrong, one equation at a time. Amara Johnson lay in a sterile hospital bed, the steady beep of monitors punctuating the quiet. Her swollen belly taut beneath a thin gown, strained against the straps of fetal monitors, each pulse a reminder of the triplets she carried. Preeclampsia had landed her here, her blood pressure dangerously high, and the fear of losing her babies gnawed at her. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting stark shadows on her drawn face. Her meticulous schedule: 3 jobs, Harvard classes, a perfect GPA had crumbled under her body's rebellion. Yet even in this moment of vulnerability, her mind churned with equations, her notebook of ion propulsion designs resting on the bedside table. Dr. Olivia Harper, her mentor, sat nearby her laptop, open her calm presence a lifeline. Olivia said, "You're not alone in this," her voice steady as she flipped through Amara's sketches. "This propulsion system could redefine space travel. We're submitting it to the MIT NASA competition." Amara's breath hitched, doubt warring with hope. "I can't, Olivia. I'm hooked to monitors, barely staying awake." Her hands clenched the bedsheet, the weight of her situation pressing down. As a black woman in academia, she'd faced professors who questioned her brilliance, classmates who whispered she didn't belong. Now confined to a hospital bed, the world seemed to conspire against her again. Olivia leaned forward, her eyes fierce with conviction. "I was you 20 years ago, pregnant, underestimated, fighting for a PhD in a room full of skeptics. My mentor pulled me through. Now it's my turn." Her words, rooted in shared struggle, cracked Amara's defenses. She nodded, a tear slipping free, not from defeat, but from the flicker of possibility. Over the next week, a rhythm emerged in the hospital room. Olivia arrived each morning armed with tea and academic journals, transforming the sterile space into a makeshift laboratory. Amara, propped with pillows, dictated equations for a propulsion system that recaptured wasted energy through a secondary magnetic field, boosting efficiency by 40%. Olivia typed, asking sharp questions to refine the theory, her fingers flying as Amara sketched on a notepad balanced on her belly. Nurses lingered, intrigued, as Amara explained ionization chambers, her voice gaining strength despite her physical fragility. One afternoon, a sharp pain doubled her over mid-sentence, her gasp halting their work. "Breathe, Amara," Olivia urged, squeezing her hand until the contraction passed. "We're almost there." The deadline loomed 3 days away, and Amara's health teetered, but her determination burned brighter than ever. The night before submission, Amara woke to mild contractions, panic seizing her. "It's too early," she whispered, clutching her phone to call Olivia. "The proposal's not done." Olivia arrived within the hour, her pajamas peeking from under her coat. "It's handled," she said, helping Amara settle. "You've built the framework. I'll format the final document." Working through the night, they polished the proposal Amara dictating, while monitors tracked her rising blood pressure. The submission was complete by dawn. A revolutionary design that could transform interplanetary missions. As Olivia hit send, Amara exhaled a fragile hope taking root. "What if it's not enough?" she murmured, her voice raw. Olivia met her gaze. "It's more than enough. It's you." 2 days later, Amara's phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Ms. Johnson, this is Dr. Abrams from MIT's aerospace department," a voice said. "Your competition submission is extraordinary. We want to interview you next week." Amara's heart raced, her hand resting on her belly, where a faint kick answered. "I'm in the hospital," she admitted. "No problem," Dr. Abrams replied. "We'll come to you." The interview occurred in her hospital room, and Amara propped up her notes spread across the bed. 2 NASA engineers and Dr. Abrams listened as she detailed her system's magnetic recapture, her voice steady despite the IV in her arm. She explained that this could cut mission costs by 30%, flipping to a diagram. The engineers exchanged impressed glances, one noting, "This is beyond most doctoral work." Amara felt a surge of pride as they left, tempered by the weight of her precarious health. Olivia, lingering by the door, smiled. "You've just changed your future." Lying in the dim hospital light, Amara stared at the Boston skyline through the window, its faint glow a beacon of possibility. She whispered to her triplets, "We did it not for him, but for us." The spark of hope kindled in crisis would carry her forward, a testament to her unyielding spirit in the face of impossible odds. Amara Johnson awoke at 3:00 a.m. to a sharp stabbing pain, her bedsheets damp with fluid. Panic seized her as she fumbled for her phone in the darkness of her Roxbury apartment, the Boston skyline a faint blur through the rain-streaked window. At 28 weeks pregnant, it was too early for labor. Her fingers trembled as she dialed Dr. Olivia Harper. "I think I'm in labor," she gasped, her voice tight with fear. "There's fluid." Olivia's response was immediate, calm but urgent. "Stay put, Amara. Call an ambulance. I'm on my way." The next hour dissolved into a blur of sirens, searing pain, and urgent medical voices. In the emergency room, Amara caught fragments of conversation. Blood pressure, 160/90. Fetal distress in baby B. Prep for C-section, each word tightening the knot in her chest. Olivia arrived still in pajamas under her coat, her presence a steady anchor as Amara was wheeled into surgery. The operating room was a whirl of bright lights and controlled chaos. Numb from the chest down, Amara lay awake, her heart pounding as the surgical team worked. Olivia gripped her hand, murmuring, "You're strong, Amara. They're going to be okay." A tiny mewling cry pierced the air, fragile but alive. The surgeon announced the first baby, a boy, briefly showing Amara a glimpse of a minuscule red face before whisking him to the NICU. 2 more cries followed quickly. Malik, Noah, and Elijah, born under 3 pounds each, their translucent skin threaded with delicate veins. Tears streamed down Amara's face, relief and terror mingling as she whispered their names chosen weeks ago in quiet moments of hope. Hours later, still groggy from anesthesia, Amara was wheeled to the neonatal intensive care unit. The NICU's hushed beeping and sterile smell enveloped her as she approached 3 incubators each, cradling a tiny form swaddled in tubes. She reached through a port, her finger brushing Malik's palm, his fingers curling reflexively around hers. "Hello, Malik," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm your mom." She moved to Noah and then Elijah, their heartbreak being Ing and miraculous smallness. "They're fighters," the NICU nurse said softly, breathing with minimal oxygen for 28 weekers. Amara's chest ached with love and fear, the weight of their fragility anchoring her resolve. She'd build a future for them no matter the cost. Days later, as Amara recovered from surgery, her phone rang with news that shifted her world. "Ms. Johnson, it's Dr. Abrams from MIT, the voice said. "Your propulsion system won the MIT NASA competition. You've secured a fully funded doctoral position and a NASA partnership." Amara's breath caught her hand resting on her surgical scar. The victory felt surreal, a beacon amidst the haze of hospital visits. Olivia, ever present, helped secure a small Cambridge apartment through MIT's housing program, closer to the hospital and campus. Amara began her PhD remotely balancing breast pump schedules with lecture notes, her laptop perched beside NICU monitors. The triplets' survival fueled her ambition each tiny heartbeat, reminding her why she couldn't fail. The first weeks tested her limits. Amara shuttled between the NICU and her studies, her body aching. Her mind stretched thin. One night alone in her new apartment, she stared at a stack of bills, the $243 in her account, long gone. Doubt crept in. Could she be the mother her sons needed, and the scholar her dreams demanded? As a black woman, she'd faced skepticism in academia, professors doubting her ability to juggle her workload. Now, with triplets, the stakes were higher, the whispers louder. But Olivia's voice echoed, "Talent like yours doesn't go unnoticed." Amara wiped her tears, pulling out her propulsion notebook. She sketched a new equation, her pen steady, her sons' tiny faces in her mind. 6 weeks later, Malik came home, followed by Noah and Elijah. The apartment furnished with second-hand cribs and a sanitized changing table buzzed with their cries. That first night, Amara rocked Noah in a sling, fed Elijah, and soothed Malik, exhaustion blurring her vision. "We can do this," she whispered, her voice fierce, despite the ache in her scar. The Boston skyline glimmered outside, a silent witness to the family and legacy she was forging, one determined step at a time. Amara Johnson stood in her cramped Cambridge apartment, the hum of second-hand cribs filling the air, as Malik, Noah, and Elijah, now 3 months old, slept fitfully. Her laptop glowed on the kitchen table, displaying a business plan for Johnson Aerospace Technologies, her fledgling company built on the patented ion propulsion system that had won the MIT NASA competition. The Boston skyline glimmered outside, a reminder of the empire she aimed to forge. Yet doubt gnawed at her. Starting a company as a single mother of triplets was a gamble few would bet on. She'd declined lucrative offers from Boeing and Lockheed Martin, their promises of stability tempting but stifling. "They want my mind, not my family," she murmured, glancing at the cribs. As a black woman in a field dominated by white men, she'd faced enough closed doors at Harvard. She wouldn't let her sons grow up in the shadow of someone else's vision. Securing funding proved daunting. Amara pitched to venture capitalists in sleek Boston boardrooms, her propulsion system's 40% efficiency gain, dazzling on paper. But investors' eyes drifted to her modest attire or lingered on her mention of motherhood. A single mother with 3 infants. One scoffed, leaning back in his leather chair. "How can you commit to the 100-hour weeks this demands?" The question, laced with condescension, echoed the biases she'd faced in academia, assumptions that her brilliance was secondary to her circumstances. Amara's jaw tightened, her voice steady. "I earned a PhD while raising triplets and working 3 jobs. My efficiency surpasses founders who need sleep." Most investors walked away, their skepticism a wall she couldn't breach. A critical opportunity arose with Stellar X, a microsatellite company seeking lightweight propulsion. The presentation was scheduled for 3 hours when Amara's daycare called a stomach virus had struck and her sons were vomiting, needing immediate pickup. Panic surged, canceling wasn't an option. Stellar X was her last viable lead before her savings ran dry. She rushed to the daycare, finding Malik, Noah, and Elijah, pale and fussy, their tiny faces etched with discomfort. "I'm so sorry, my brave boys," she whispered, gathering them close. With no time to reschedule, she called Dr. Olivia Harper, her mentor, who arrived at the lab within the hour. Olivia insisted on setting up cots for the triplets in a quiet corner. "I'll watch them. This matters." Amara transformed the lab's makeshift office into a presentation space, her prototype gleaming under fluorescent lights. Malik whimpered softly. Noah clutched a blanket, and Elijah dozed fitfully as Olivia tended to them. When the Stellar X executives arrived, Amara greeted them with polished composure, her voice steady as she detailed her system's weight reduction and cost savings. Midway through, Elijah's cry pierced the room. "Excuse me, gentlemen," Amara said, her tone unflinching. "My sons are ill. I'll need 2 minutes." She stepped away, soothing Elijah with a bottle, then returned, resuming her pitch without missing a beat. The executives, initially skeptical, exchanged glances, impressed by her calm under pressure. The Stellar X chief engineer said, "Your system is exactly what we need," nodding. "The efficiency metrics are game-changing." The CEO offered a development contract with milestone payments, which is a lifeline for Amara's venture. That evening, with the contract signed and the triplets finally asleep, Amara sank onto her couch, relief washing over her. Olivia, sipping tea at the kitchen table, smiled. "You turned chaos into triumph today. That's who you are." Amara's eyes glistened, not with exhaustion, but gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you." With the Stellar X funds, Amara hired her first employee, Maya, a skilled engineer, who arrived for her interview to find Noah banging on a toy keyboard and Malik stacking blocks. "My sons are part of this," Amara said firmly. "Is that an issue?" Maya grinned. "I grew up in my mom's tailor shop. Kids belong where work happens." The lab became a second home, with a play corner for the triplets amid prototype parts. As Johnson Aerospace Technologies took shape, Amara felt the weight of her gamble, building a legacy for her sons, proving the world wrong, one breakthrough at a time. Amara Johnson stood in the doorway of the home laboratory she'd built in their Cambridge apartment, watching Malik, Noah, and Elijah, now 9 years old, tinker with a prototype. The room buzzed with their chatter. Malik adjusting a navigation algorithm on a tablet, Noah coding a cybersecurity protocol, Elijah tweaking a miniature propulsion model. Johnson Aerospace Technologies had grown from a one-woman venture into a promising startup, its contracts with Stellar X fueling modest expansion. The triplets, raised amid circuit boards and equations, absorbed Amara's world like sponges. Yet, as she watched their nimble fingers and sharp minds, a pang of doubt surfaced. Were they growing too fast, their childhoods eclipsed by her ambition? As a black single mother, she'd faced scrutiny, whispers at Harvard about her ability to parent and succeed. Her son's brilliance now invited new judgments, teachers murmuring they were too advanced for their peers. Malik, the analytical one, looked up, his brow furrowed. "Mom, my algorithm cut computational load by 15%. Noah, quieter, nodded. "My security protocol found a network flaw at school." Elijah, always in motion, grinned, holding up his model. "This boosts thrust efficiency by 7%. Amara smiled, pride mingling with worry. Their talents were undeniable, but their curiosity about their origins was growing. That evening, at their small kitchen table, Amara served their favorite spaghetti with homemade sauce, a ritual to anchor their hectic lives. The triplets' chatter shifted from quantum mechanics to a science competition at MIT, where they'd entered a quantum communication system. But Elijah's question, sudden and sharp, stilled the room. "Mom, why don't we have a dad like other kids?" Amara set down her fork, her heart heavy. She'd known this moment would come, their analytical minds too sharp for vague answers. "That's a fair question," she said, her voice measured. "Your father, Marcus Thompson, and I were together before you were born. I met him at his company during my internship. When I told him I was pregnant with you three, he wasn't ready for that responsibility. He chose to leave." Malik's eyes narrowed, processing. "So he didn't want us." Noah's face, usually guarded, flickered with hurt. Elijah's hands clenched, anger simmering. "That makes no sense. Why would he walk away from you? From us?" Amara reached for their hands, her touch steady. "Some people can't see beyond their plans. His choice was about his limits, not your worth." The triplets sat in silence, their expressions distinct yet unified. Malik logical asked, "Did he ever try to find us?" Amara shook her head. "No. He's at Thompson Technologies, but he's never reached out." Noah, staring at his plate, murmured, "Does he know how far we've come?" Elijah's voice rose. "I don't care. He doesn't deserve to know us." Amara's chest tightened, sensing their pain beneath the bravado. "You're extraordinary," she said softly, "not because of him, but because of us, our family." The conversation lingered, their questions probing genetics and choices, each boy grappling with the absence in his way. The MIT science competition arrived, a buzzing auditorium filled with high school teams, dwarfed by the triplets' 9th grade entry. Amara sat in the back, her heart swelling, as Malik, Noah, and Elijah took the stage, their presentation seamless. Malik outlined the quantum entanglement theory, his voice clear. Noah demonstrated the prototype, his fingers steady. Elijah, charismatic, pitched future applications for lunar missions. Stunned by their sophistication, judges peppered them with questions which the boys easily answered. A nearby spectator whispered, "They're only 9. That's unreal." Amara overheard, her pride tempered by protectiveness. Their brilliance drew attention, but she shielded their personal lives from scrutiny, knowing the world often judged families like theirs unconventional, led by a black single mother. The triplets won first place, their trophy gleaming as they posed for photos. Later at home, Amara found Noah at his computer, researching Thompson Technologies. He said their stock's down 20%, his tone neutral, but his eyes searching. "I just wanted to understand him." Amara sat beside him, her voice gentle. "You don't need him to understand yourselves. You're building your legacy." Noah nodded, closing the laptop. The competition victory and their father's absence had sparked a new resolve in the triplets, their talents now fueled by a quiet determination to prove their worth, not to Marcus, but to themselves. Amara Johnson stood on a Boston heliport, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the tarmac. Her tailored Armani suit hugged her frame, a diamond-encrusted Rolex gleaming on her wrist, a gift to herself, marking Johnson Aerospace Technologies' first billion-dollar valuation. Malik, Noah, and Elijah, now 15, flanked her, their sharp suits mirroring her poise as they boarded a private helicopter for a NASA meeting in New York. Amara checked her watch, the skyline of her past struggles stretching below, as the chopper lifted off its blades, slicing the air. The ascent felt symbolic, a far cry from the rainy Boston nights when she'd scraped by with $243 and a broken heart. Inside, Malik reviewed navigation algorithms. Noah debugged a security protocol, and Elijah sketched propulsion tweaks their focus, a testament to the empire they were building together. Amara's heart swelled with pride, tinged with a quiet ache. Had she pushed them too hard, their childhoods shaped by her relentless drive, Johnson Aerospace, now valued at $4.2 billion, dominated private space exploration, with contracts from NASA, ESA, and JAXA. Amara's propulsion technology, born in a hospital bed, had become the industry standard powering satellites and lunar missions. Her diversification into sustainable energy systems and habitat designs positioned her company as a leader in humanity's extraterrestrial future. Their brilliance was undeniable, but their exposure at the gala invited questions about their father. Questions she'd answered years ago, yet still stung. The museum buzzed with tech titans and investors, its grand hall transformed with digital displays. Amara ascended the staircase, the triplets in perfect formation, their presence drawing murmurs. "That's Johnson Aerospace." A venture capitalist whispered. "Started from nothing, now worth billions." Amara moved through the crowd with practiced ease, shaking hands with NASA administrators while Malik coordinated with engineers. At 8:15, she took the stage, her voice commanding silence. "Johnson Aerospace is proud to announce the acquisition of lunar expeditions, completing our strategy for humanity's permanent lunar presence." Holographic renderings of habitats and transport systems materialized, the crowd gasping at their sophistication. Malik, Noah, and Elijah operated tablets, their synchronized movements amplifying the display's impact. Amara's gaze swept the audience, pride swelling as she introduced her sons. "Malik, Noah, and Elijah have driven navigation security and engineering innovations, shaping our lunar vision." Applause thundered, but Amara's focus shifted to a figure on the mezzanine. Marcus Thompson, his face-pale eyes fixed on the triplets. She hadn't seen him since that rainy night yet. His presence stirred no anger, only a detached curiosity. Had he recognized the sons he'd discarded? The gala's spotlight burned brighter, her empire's rise starkly contrasting his fading legacy. As she stepped off the stage, Amara knew the night held more than a corporate victory. A reckoning loomed, one she'd face with the same unyielding strength that had carried her this far. The Metropolitan Museum of Art glowed under Manhattan's evening sky, its grand hall alive with the clink of champagne flutes and the murmur of tech moguls. Amara Johnson stood center stage, her Armani suit sharp against the holographic lunar base display fading behind her. The crowd's applause for her lunar expedition's acquisition announcement still echoed as she descended the steps. Malik, Noah, and Elijah coordinating post-presentation logistics with tablets in hand. Her diamond Rolex caught the light, a quiet symbol of her ascent from a rain-soaked Boston sidewalk. Yet as she moved toward the VIP reception area, a voice cut through the din, soft but unmistakable. "Amara." Her stride paused, her expression controlled as she turned to face Marcus Thompson, his face pale, his last season suit hanging loosely on a frame worn by stress. Marcus's hand trembled around a champagne flute, his eyes darting between Amara and the triplets, their sharp features a haunting mirror of his own. "Jasmine Amara." He stammered the slip, revealing his disorientation. Amara's gaze was calm, devoid of warmth or malice, as if appraising a stranger. "Does Thompson Technologies still exist?" she asked, her tone clipped a deliberate echo of his past scorn. The words landed like a blade, Marcus's forced smile faltering. As a black woman who'd built an empire in a field that often sidelined her, Amara had faced countless slights, investors doubting her peers, questioning her place. Marcus's rejection years ago had been personal, but this moment was business, her indifference a shield, honed by years of overcoming bias. Before Marcus could respond, Malik, Noah, and Elijah approached their synchronized steps, exuding confidence. Mother Dr. Hawkins from ESA wants to discuss terraformation. Malik said, his voice precise. Amara's expression softened briefly. She introduced Marcus Thompson, an acquaintance from Boston, her neutrality calculated. These are my sons, Malik, Noah, and Elijah. Each boy extended a hand, their grips firm, their eyes assessing. Marcus shook their hands, their throat tightening at their resemblance to him, yet their poised detachment felt foreign. Noah, ever analytical, tilted his head. Thompson Technologies. Your navigation system failed last year's satellite launch. Correct. The innocent but precise question stung Marcus's silence, betraying his humiliation. Amara seized the moment, her voice steady as she returned to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, she announced, the crowd hushing, that Johnson Aerospace had finalized the acquisition of Thompson Technologies effective 10 minutes ago on NASDAQ. Gasps rippled through the hall. Marcus's glass slipped slightly, his face ashen as the implications sank in. The anonymous Singapore firm, the board's unanimous vote, had all been Amara orchestrating his company's end. She continued that this strategic move integrates their patents into our software division, her eyes locking on Marcus despite its leadership challenges. The crowd erupted in applause, oblivious to the personal weight of her words, a calculated reversal of Marcus's long-ago dismissal. You're a burden to my future. Marcus pushed through the crowd, his voice low and desperate. You can't do this. That company is my family's legacy. Amara regarded him with calm detachment. Business is business, Marcus. Your shareholders chose progress. Her words mirrored his cruelty, but her tone held no vengeance, only fact. Malik, Noah, and Elijah stood nearby, their expressions unreadable. Elijah, the most intuitive, studied Marcus with a flicker of curiosity. You're him, aren't you? The one who left. The statement, devoid of anger, cut deeper than accusation. Marcus flinched, grasping for words. I was wrong, he muttered. I didn't know what I was losing. Amara's gaze remained steady. My sons have never needed you. They've built their legacy. She turned to an approaching NASA executive, dismissing Marcus with a nod. My team will contact you about your role or lack thereof in the restructured organization. The triplets moved with her, their unity a silent rebuke. As they headed to the press area, Noah glanced back, his voice low. He doesn't understand what he missed. Malik nodded. His loss shaped us. Amara's heart ached briefly, not for Marcus, but for the pain her sons had processed alone. Yet their strength, forged in her empire, was her triumph, a legacy beyond his reach. Amara Johnson stood in a sleek conference room on the 38th floor of Johnson Aerospace Technologies' Manhattan headquarters, the city's skyline sprawling beyond the glass walls. The morning after the Tech Future Gala, where she'd announced the acquisition of Thompson Technologies, her desk held a leather portfolio with final documents for the Lunar Expeditions merger. Her sons Malik, Noah, and Elijah were at school, and their contributions to last night's holographic display are still earning buzz in industry circles. Amara's tailored suit and diamond Rolex gleamed under the soft lighting, symbols of a journey from a Roxbury apartment to a $4.2 billion empire. Yet, as she reviewed the papers, a quiet ache lingered, not for Marcus Thompson's downfall, but for the pain her sons had faced, learning his choice to abandon them. As a black woman who'd shattered barriers in aerospace, she'd endured skepticism and bias, but her greatest triumph was her family's resilience. A knock broke her thoughts. Her assistant, James, ushered Marcus into the room. His once polished demeanor frayed his suit, creased from a sleepless night. Amara rose, her expression neutral. gesturing to a chair across the glass table. "I have 10 minutes," she said, her voice carrying the quiet authority that silenced boardrooms. Marcus sat, his hands fidgeting. "I want to know my sons," he blurted, desperation edging his tone. "I have rights." Amara's gaze was steady, unflinching. "You relinquished any rights when you left us on that sidewalk. You called my children burdens and expenses with no return. They've built more in their short lives than you ever will." Marcus leaned forward, his voice cracking. "I was wrong, Amara. I didn't see what I was throwing away." She tilted her head, her calm unshaken. "My sons dined with Elon Musk last month, discussing Mars colonization. Malik's algorithms guide NASA missions. Noah's security protocols protect global banks, and Elijah's propulsion designs are patented. What could you offer them?" The words, delivered without malice, struck like a scalpel. Marcus's shoulders slumped, the weight of his irrelevance clear. As a black woman navigating a field that often dismissed her, Amara had turned scrutiny into fuel, building an empire while raising prodigies. Marcus's regret was irrelevant to her fulfilled life. The door opened, and Malik, Noah, and Elijah entered, their school uniforms crisp, their expressions startled to see Marcus. "Sorry, Mom. We didn't know you were meeting Malik," said, his tone professional. Amara softened, gesturing them in. "We're finishing." Elijah, the most perceptive, studied Marcus, his eyes narrowing. "You're him, the one from Boston." His voice held no anger, only clarity. "Your absence made us stronger. It taught us our worth isn't tied to anyone's approval." Noah, quieter, nodded. "We've never needed you." Malik added that his voice was analytical, and that your company's patents are helpful, but its leadership failed. "We're integrating them for progress." Their calm and unified words crushed Marcus more than any outburst could. Amara rose, signaling the meeting's end. "There's no space for you in our lives, Marcus. Not from revenge, but because we've filled every gap with achievement and love." As security escorted him out, Marcus paused at the lobby's massive display, a lunar habitat prototype, its screens showcasing Johnson Aerospace's breakthroughs. A banner unfurled outside its bold text, reading, "The future is built by those who dare." It featured silhouettes of Amara and her sons, their legacy etched against the Manhattan sky. Marcus's taxi merged into Fifth Avenue's flow, the city indifferent to his loss, a family, an empire, a chance at something extraordinary. Amara gathered with Malik, Noah, and Elijah in her office, reviewing plans for their lunar base project. "What's next?" "Mom?" Elijah asked, his sketchpad open to new designs. Amara smiled, her heart full. "We keep building for us, for the stars." Their laughter filled the room, a testament to a life complete without looking back. What did you think of Amara's journey? Drop a comment below to share your thoughts. Hit that like button if her triumph inspired you, and subscribe for more stories of resilience.